Hello. Welcome to Intractable Daily. I'm not going to count my episodes because there's going to, there are going to be a lot of them. So this is an intractable pain that I deal with. One of my suicide diseases, suicide diseases, called Adhesive Arachnoiditis. And so I'm going to put this out to my face for a bit here, and then I'm going to come back to this. So I have a lot of experience with this. I've had this disease now, for 15 years. This is a very sobering disease to have. It's the last disease on this planet that you want to have. When I say that, I'm not embellishing anything. That's what this is. But don't worry, I will try to give you some hope. The nicknames, not in the beginning though. I'm going to give you the realities. The nickname of this is the disease of no hope and the devil's disease. And the reason for that is, you see me shifting around a lot, okay? This is adhesive arachnoiditis. I'm at the end of my day. If you've read about adhesive arachnoiditis through Dr. Tennant, and there's people who have gone like really in-depth articles, written like beautiful scientific pages, because not a lot of people of physicians and specialists do. That it's, I don't know, I'm just taking a guess, maybe more than half of people who have adhesive, I'm not talking about arachnitis, I'm talking when it turns adhesive, and but it would also be with regular arachnoiditis, shift around like this, then like me, don't sit down. I don't sit down. I am not comfortable at all. You see, I'm eating here. I got a plate of food here. I go and I do the stuff I have to do during my day. And I use, I'll sit down for, this is part of my regimen. I give myself 3 hours at the very end of my night. I eat my dinner. And, the only way I can continuously sit here is if I eat to distract myself. And while I'm doing it, I restore my body. Otherwise, I would never rest. I went undiagnosed from 2009 to 2021. Was diagnosed by Dr. Tennant, and he even pointed out where the scar tissue was attached to the spine, where no one else saw anything. And like, even if you would have got an MRI, they would have. I did get an MRI, but they said send it to us because they're not going to tell you anything. It said degenerative disc disease, that's it. But they said to expect that. And anyways, the good part is that in adhesive arachnoiditis, on your MRI, you can see with adhesive. It has to be adhesive though. It's called adhesive because that means adhere. The scarring adheres to the canal wall, and it's visible on MRI. Guess you'd call this catastrophic. I'll tell you how mine happened, how I felt, what I went through, and what I did. Pardon me, I just sat down So I'm getting used to this. This is good information. This should be about as good information as you're going to get. I had other pain. I had full body CRPS, RSD, or they call it now the nosoplastic pain syndrome, because people were killing themselves because they weren't making the diagnosing process. I went 13 years not knowing what this was. Wait, 9 to 21. Sorry, 2009, 10, about 13 years, let's say, without knowing what this was, and 18 years for the nosoplastic pain, full body RSD. Again, the suicide disease. I have 4 suicide diseases, pain suicide diseases, burning, throbbing, aching, bright lights. So I was in very desperate shape in 2009 with a lot of problems already in my life, pain. And because of the pain, suicide disease, whatever, and I'm not going to hide it on my channel, I tried to commit suicide. And I jumped from a height, and it was because of something else that was not my fault. In a desperate move, and I slammed my coccyx into the ground from a high enough height. Within 6 months, I started getting shocks up my legs when I was out walking. And my legs became progressively disabled within 6 months, but 6 months to about a year and a half. So 6 months, so add another 6 months, I was starting to get very bad. It was becoming so hard to walk and move. And it's a very hard life. I'm like this in my bed too, okay? Like when I get in my bed at the end of the night, I'm like shifting around, talking to God, saying, like, this is my life. So it started with shocks going up one and then both legs. And when I found I couldn't really walk that well anymore, remember I had a lot of other difficulties, so you may not resonate with this. I ended up on a couch. I started to be couch bound. And what I started to notice was I started to feel that, and then I thought I had Tarloff cyst disease because of one particular sign, which was I felt like I was sitting on a rock. I would sit with my legs up to my chest because the underneath of my legs hurt so much that I couldn't sit my legs out like I am now. It was bad. I started going to bars. I would force myself to walk there in a lot of pain to drink alcohol. And the only reason I was drinking alcohol, was to take away the neuropathic pain in my legs. And I later found out it's like related to ketamine, and an NMDA receptor agonist or antagonist, I forget, I think it's agonist. Really helps this type of pain. I'm going to make it very clear to you, this pain is equal to terminal cancer. And it says it in the medical literature in many areas. I've read a lot of different papers. I am medicated. I take great care of my life. I'm as disciplined as anyone in the military is. I don't say that lightly. I work out every morning. I go for 2 walks a day. I'm very disciplined. And it's to save my life. I ended up in a place where I was bedbound, but because of other issues too. But I had like a relapse of my legs that I remember trying to stand up out of my bed in 2015. So that was just say 5 years later. Let's just say it's about 5. And it was getting worse. When I went to stand up, felt like the backs of my legs hurt so much. Like you'd take a butter knife and it would just split right open. That's how I always explain it. I was scared. I was really scared. I'll get to some images and stuff, but I gotta let you know how this is. I started getting injections of Toradol, and I took Toradol by a needle for like 3 or 4 years. My dad would come in my room and give me shots in my butt and in my thigh. I was so thin then. I'm thin now because of all the abdominal issues I deal with. And just 13 pain disorders. I was getting adhesions from the shots. Eventually I went to take it orally. Took it for 10 years. But it ended up with peptic ulcers. But I caught it in time. So in 2015, I was in my bed. I could not sleep because the pain in my legs was so bad. My legs were up like this, on a bed, because if I tried to do that, it would hurt so much. My whole back would stretch out. This is a horrific disease. There is no disease that matches this as far as pain that's always there. It's always like boiling, scorpions sting your legs, pins and needles. You go for a walk, your legs are all numb, like that. And the lower back, and it can certainly go up further. I can visually spot this in other people now. In the building I'm living in right now, I talked to a woman in here that I saw, that I noticed that one day she just wasn't walking the same, and I got her diagnosed with adhesive arachnoiditis. She had a lot of surgeries on her back, so they happen from having failed back surgery syndrome. You just failed surgery in your back. All the different shots, that cortisone shots of the spine, epidurals, people slipping the needle. So they'll give you a needle. I don't believe they should give you a needle in your spine ever. Goes in like the epidural space, and then some people slip, nurses slip. You should be able to sue them if they do that. It's not an exact science. And with some people, they're like, oh, I remember I got that shot and like it felt like with my cerebral spinal, I got a massive headache or something to the effect of, I know something happened when I got that needle. I wasn't the same. I spotted it in another woman in my building. I know she has it, but she won't go and try to get a diagnosis. It's very easy because I have access to Dr. Tennant. He said I could if I wanted to, and he's older, so we may not have that access for very long. So what is this? So the symptoms. I always try to remember this as, I call it DARP, D-A-R-P. Let's look at this. I can't blow anything up here really, but well, maybe I can. I can't really center it though. You have something called your dura mater. I think that's the outside. Your arachnoid. So this is called adhesive arachnoiditis. Arachnoiditis means inflammation of the spine. Okay, that's what it means. Adhesive means that scar tissue, that inflammation which turns into progressive scar tissue, starts to adhere to the wall of the canal, and to the nerve roots begin to stick together, and the symptoms replicate MS, but the pain is much worse than MS. There's nothing on this planet that compares to this. The only thing that would be like the other pain suicide diseases in your face, but this is different. This is different. You don't want this. These are your legs. This is your back. You're going to the bathroom. Your mobilization. And it can feel like the end. So, you know, if they put a needle and they go through the dura mater. So here's the thin dura mater here. Right into the arachnoid space. And the needle goes right in there. And the next thing you know is what it does is it causes inflammation. And that's called arachnoiditis. When it's inflammation in your spine, it's called arachnoiditis. It's called arachnoiditis. It sounds like a spider web because on a microscope, it appears like a spider's web. They don't know how to diagnose it properly today, but people like Dr. Tennant do. So do others, but many radiologists are not trained in it and aren't willing to, even though it's of the symptoms that someone may have, even if they can't walk. Like, it's pretty bad. So these guys have devoted their life to this. I was in such a bad way. I was into sports, like I was the fastest swimmer. I'd never had another person beat me in that, and I was a very fast runner. And then I was shrunk down to nothing. What a devastating disease. And they call it the disease of no hope for a reason. You're going to have to find some neuropathic medications and probably an opiate. It's the only disorder that there is on Earth that's the first line of treatment is an opiate. The only one. Because it's devastating. I don't think any two people are going to look the same with this. It varies quite widely. There are so many symptoms, and people get branded as hypochondriacs because they can't find the cause, and they have as many symptoms as MS because it's your spinal nerves. I'm not the best at. I could probably read an MRI, but I didn't really get into that and try to learn how to, I just wanted to know what it was, how it was caused. You can study. There are books that show you how to do it. But I see a lot of people getting it wrong, so it's probably not a good thing to do. See, this is showing right here that normal. This is normal. This is your spinal process right here. Okay, that's like your spinal backbone. I have to take the skin off your back. It would present with this. Then inside here is your spinal canal, and these are nerve roots. And this is how the nerve bundles should look. They should line up like this. They're spread out. They're good shape. These are like the nerve connections that come in, go out, go out. And then this one, you can see it's one big ball. And those are adhesions. That's not the best example, but it's pretty good still. I recommend you, if you're just, I'll put my face back up here because it's, so beautiful. I think there's a lecture that will teach you a lot about this, about how to identify it. But what he's saying in there, I would not concur with as far as how rare it is, because they don't take into account, all the information about. Remember, epidurals are still relatively new, right? All these cortisone shots, they don't have the data of all the people's backs that are now like this. So it's not being diagnosed properly. I could imagine another 20 or 30 years, yes. And that's what these people are fighting to do. God bless them for doing it. The only way I got better, I got better because of God, okay? You may say, what does God have to do with this? I believe in God, okay? It was a long journey. I had to learn things. But if you know what it is already, then you're in a good shape. Because that's half the battle. Pardon me. I don't like chewing lettuce on this. But a mix of proper medications. Watch out for abusive behavior. If you're going to use opiates, you're going to have to learn to use them without getting hyperalgesia, which is an increased need to keep using them. You're going to have to learn to potentiate, which means, let's say you're taking gabapentin for the nerve pain, which works well, by the way. You would potentiate them with each other. You could use something like CBD. It potentiates the opiate. But you have to exercise, meaning, I'm not telling you to go do track. I'm telling you, you have to go out walking. I moved in this building 5.5 years ago. In such bad shape, I didn't have my diagnosis for full body intractable pain. I didn't have it for adhesive arachnoiditis, and I suffered for like 20 years. It was very tough on my mental. When I walked in here, I had a cane, and I was like bent over posture, which I only let go in the last year and a half. Coming up on, year and a half. I went from 1 to 2 walks a day. I was only walking like every 50 feet, and I'd have to like stretch out my legs like they were cramps. I was punching my legs. But the further I walked, albeit with proper pain meds, the better I got, the further I could go. Increase oxygenation. If you're wondering what's on my hand, it's from, I'm making model cars, like spray painting and using enamel and all that type of stuff. It's stuck on my hands. It's hard to get out, this stuff. Sandpaper to get that out. It was through persistence. But I want you to know I fought a battle that most people don't fight. I mean, about being gaslit about what this was, because I couldn't see it because I didn't get an MRI of my spine. And even when people told me to get one, they said make sure to send it here to Dr. Tennant, which I contact them. They told me to expect something different. And when the MRI came in from my family doctor, she said, don't worry, it's not empty, meaning there says something. Because I was very upset, Kay, that I found out that I didn't have this. Why would I be upset? Because it explained everything that I was going through, and I finally wanted an answer because I was suffering mentally. I would have accepted anything. And they said degenerative disc disease throughout my spine. And that's what the medical papers said. It says. So it is still degenerative disc disease. Because degenerative changes can also cause this. Vice versa. Bulging discs can cause this, nerve impingement. So I'm going to conclude with this because I have to do another video too on a different channel. It's difficult for me to speak, in case you haven't noticed. I am most relaxed though. I do other videos standing up during the day, but this is my most relaxed state, is sitting down here waiting for my meds to kick in. You know, before I go for my walks, I take opiates. I had to quit Toradol. I don't take an anti-inflammatory, by the way, and I'm better for it. I ended up with 4 peptic ulcers, but somehow God allowed me to last 10 years on Toradol. You're supposed to be on it for no more than a week. And I do recommend taking Toradol when you need it. It's the magic one of them all. It's so much more powerful than any of them. It's just a different. That's why they give them in surgery and all that type of stuff. But don't take it for long. There are other treatments. I forget the one that you can take, the sublingual. There is one out there. I forget the name of it. There's something out there. What's it called? Is it naltrexone or naloxone? Remember I said that and researched that. It completely there's no side effects to this at all. And you can take it if you never want to take opiates. But I don't think you can take it low dose. I don't know why I'm forgetting it. Naltrexone, I think. I've given you about as much info as you'll need with this. Here's my hope for you. That you will, you see people with adhesive arachnoiditis, it's very hard to get moving. It's like the same symptoms as MS, a lot of them. What I did, and here's my hope for you, is to strengthen your legs. I'm one of those people that puts himself purposely through pain flares. I don't mean like going out and trying to hurt my back. And be careful, do not lift, I would say, over 40 pounds. Watch the way you twist your spine, because remember, if you have adhesions in your spine and you go to lift something or twist too quickly, those adhesions rip. And when those adhesions rip, it's worse than terminal cancer pain. I promise you that. You feel like you're in hell. You already do. My legs are burning. They're always like that. You can see it in the look of people's faces. I strengthened my legs very carefully, and I learned to push myself further. And I know there's a lot of people with adhesive arachnoiditis who can walk far distances. Today, with the help of God, I could go out right now and walk 10K. I've been walking like 7 kilometers some weekends, like in just one go, and I could go further. That's something I always loved throughout my life, though. God bless everyone. I hope this helps you. Start studying these little images that I'm showing you. Look at what the spinal canal and everything, all those things look like.